Hey, this is Jake Wood, host of the Viva Alberto's podcast, as well as a writer for the site. I am so excited to join this community and bring you all top-notch content, as well as being a growing voice in the community.
Hi, I'm Heather Simon. I am the site manager at Viva Alberto's. I am very excited about the upcoming season with you all, because something that I love about being with Viva Alberto's is the amazing people and all the lifelong friends I have made.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mike Jones. I write under the pseudonym Skyric ESQ for Viva Alberto's, and my forte with the site is the roster rules. There's almost always a rules reason why moves are made, and I enjoy interacting with the community to help people understand why certain moves are made.
Hi, this is Gabe. I'm a writer for Viva Alberto's. So I just love presenting my opinions and seeing the feedback from the community, who basically have taught me how to become a more knowledgeable baseball fan, to see what people think of what I have to say, and love to hear what other people say in the comments especially.
Hey, my name is Adam Akbani. I've been writing at Viva Alberto's for going on almost 2-3 years now, and my favorite part is the whole community, being able to talk baseball with lots of fans, especially in St. Louis. It's always a great time.
Welcome into another episode of the Viva Alberto's podcast. Today with me, I have returning writer of the site, Mike Jones. Mike, how are you doing this fine evening?
I'm outstanding, guys. Thanks very much for having me. Look forward to it.
All right. And today we have special guests with us. We have the Baseball Insider boys. We got Adam Weinrib, and we have Fansided's national insider for Fansided, Robert Murray. Adam, let's start with you. How are you doing this fine evening?
Thank you for starting with me. I am good. Could not be better. Thanks for having me.
Robert Murray, how are you doing this fine evening, sir?
Dude, I am wonderful, even better now that I'm here with you boys. It shall be a fun time on this lovely podcast. I'm very excited.
I'm ready to talk some ball. How about you boys?
Not really.
Okay.
I could if
you know what?
Yeah,
You're right, Robert. Let's start off talking about the newest addition to the Baseball Insiders, Cooper, making a run for the bestest boy in baseball. Unfortunately for Adam, I don't know if I should say unfortunately, but Adam was going strong there for a while with Biscuit. Now he's got a real contender to the title.
No, they're both the same. We love them both equally, and I swear it makes us maybe the best dog duo in baseball. So I'm very excited. I'm glad Adam allowed me to have a pup and have him alongside Biscuit. That is very nice of him, and just shows how gracious of a co-host and gracious of a friend that Adam truly is.
Well, now the two have to link up. Like, we got to get Biscuit to Scottsdale. We got to get Cooper to spring training on the East Coast. Like, we got to figure it out, because they've met obviously online, but dogs do their best interacting in person, to be honest.
I have noticed that same thing to be true. I think Adam is onto something there for sure.
All right, so while we all love talking about pups, let's talk about some ball. Robert, I'll start with you, man. You've got probably one of the coolest jobs just in the history of ever, right? You get to cover baseball on a national level. You are at GM meetings, you're at the winter meetings, you are involved in, all of the high-level discussions with all the high-level executives. You're getting scoops. You're out there competing with Jeff Passan and Ken Rosenthal, dropping bombs left and right. Man, what is it like to be on that level and to just be that far in the know on things?
Man, I appreciate you saying that, first of all. I do not consider myself to be at the level of Passan and Rosenthal. Those guys have been doing this longer than I've been alive, and if those two ever hear that, they're going to give me a lot of shit for that. But being able to call this a job is truly it's something that I do not take for granted. And the fact that I can call up a lot of these different people around baseball, the fact that I can go to these events like the World Series, the winter meetings, the GM meetings, spring training, any regular season game that I want to, and be able to call that work is pretty unbelievable. That being said, it is a lot of work. There is a lot of phone calls that need to be made, a lot of relationships that need to be formulated. And it's like, even today at the gym, I was there and I was on the phone with an agent for 45 minutes while I was doing leg day. So, I mean, it's like, it definitely, it has a lot of perks. I mean, there's a lot that you have to give at the same time, but the rush of breaking a big story, the rush of building a new relationship in baseball, the rush of being at these events and everything that comes with it, I would not trade it for the world, because if I didn't have this job, I genuinely have no idea what I would do for a career. So I'm very, very thankful for that. And hopefully before too long, I'm able to say I'm at the level of Passan and Rosenthal. I got more work to do yet.
Well, for my money, I put you on that pedestal. I obviously have your notifications turned on, so like as soon as anything drops, I'm always like, ready to go with that stuff. So I do follow you as well as Passan and Rosenthal. That's like the trio to follow in my opinion. So
I appreciate that.
Very excited. Like I said, I was very excited to finally have you on today, and so this is a big moment for me, a little personal achievement award. Think about like the old Xbox days, like XP, rewarded, got Robert Murray on the podcast. So,
Thank you. I'm honored. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Mike, go ahead with your first question for Adam or Robert.
Sure, guys. I always, this is the question I've asked other people. It's just because it's one of the, I guess, events or areas for Cardinal baseball that I've just been confounded by and never really been able to come up with an adequate explanation other than the club just panicked. The whole Willson Contreras saga over the last couple of years, we knew, and historically the Cardinals have, with their catcher and even their backup catcher, have gone defense, defense, defense. And, they also knew how special Yadier Molina was, that he's sort of the whisperer that he did. Basically, the pitchers seemed to rely a lot more on him than the starting catchers of other staffs. And then when Molina retired, they go out and sign someone who's known for offense, who's can throw the ball really well, but known to have some other issues. And I was really always confused by why they signed him to start with if they wanted to focus on defense. And then once they did so, knowing what was at stake and knowing how important the defense was to them, how they then didn't seem to adequately prepare for it, and then had to make a switch for a couple of weeks, and then he was going to play the outfield and then he wasn't. I'm for the move to first base, but it seems like almost fortuitous rather than a plan to me. I can't believe that they signed him to that deal thinking, well, Goldschmidt's going to be gone in a couple of years. We weren't in reset mode then. So I just wanted to get, both of your thoughts on a couple of those issues, how you think the Cardinals handled it, and see if you can explain it a little bit, because the explanations we've gotten have sort of been unsatisfactory to me.
Adam, you want me to take this, or do you want to take this to start?
Yeah, Robert, why don't you go first? I'll follow you up on this one.
No, that sounds good to me. But I remember entering that offseason, it was clear that Contreras was the Cardinals, he was one of, if not their top priorities. And signing him to that deal, a 5-year, $87.5 million deal, that underscored it. And it caught a lot of baseball people by surprise, because at the deadline that previous year, it was right before he became a free agent, everyone was thinking that the Cubs were going to end up trading Contreras. But a lot of these teams had concerns about whether it was makeup or his pitch framing, or just they weren't there was obviously a lot of talent with the player, but there was a lot of questions there that needed to be answered. And they weren't really optimistic that he'd be able to jump in mid-season and be able to control a pitching staff for a postseason run or anything like that. And then the Cardinals go out and they spend this kind of money on Contreras. And to me, that this was a signing that was always there was a lot more questions than I would personally like when you're giving a guy almost $90 million. I did not think this was a strong signing by that front office at all. It kind of felt panicky, like they didn't have a real plan in place to replace Molina. And replacing a guy like Yadier Molina in the first place is an impossible task. He is a Hall of Famer, really good offensively throughout his career. Obviously, his work with the pitching staff, there cannot be enough said there. But replacing him with a guy like Willson Contreras, who in a lot of ways is pretty opposite of Molina, never really made that much sense to me. And I found out at the GM meetings, right before Mozeliak ended up announcing it to the world, that Contreras was going to end up being a guy was moving to first base this year. I'm really caught off guard by it. I think the Cardinals, in their quest to shed payroll this offseason, should look to move a guy like Contreras. That being said, I don't think there's going to be much interest, or especially when you have a contract that big. So they may end up being stuck with him, but that to me, I'm right there with you. I was very puzzled by it in the moment. I'm even more puzzled by it now, and it just never really seemed like it was destined to work.
Yeah, for a team that prizes versatility, it surprised me. And now they're sort of forcing versatility upon him as a backfill for Paul Goldschmidt, which is even odder. Robert nailed it, but what struck me when the deal occurred is that that's kind of typically the type of contract that either doesn't work or works as the precursor to an offseason full of spending. Like move one of four to cement yourself as a team that's willing to go above and beyond. And the Cardinals didn't exactly follow it up. Also, does it feel odd to you Cardinals folks? Like the Yankees and Red Sox seemingly always trade talent across the rivalry, and it seems to bite one team. A great player leaves one team, goes to the other, and it bites the one that they left. You know, Wade Boggs, Johnny Damon. In recent years, not so much Alex Verdugo. But when the Cardinals and Cubs trade free agents, it typically just sort of peters out. I mean, Dexter Fowler, Jason Hayward, it worked one place and not the other. John Lackey might be the best example of these two, somebody switching sides and contributing to both. I don't know. It's kind of an odd phenomenon.
Well, it is super strange. I mean, the Lackey deal is the one that seemed to work out close to mine. Of course, typically, I mean, and this goes across several GM administrations. We didn't trade very much within the division. Bing Devine would do that. But other than that, you didn't really see a whole lot of. I mean, one famous trade within the division was the Bruce Sutter trade with the Cubs in 1980. That worked out pretty swimmingly for us. But other than that, I agree with you. Lackey seems to be the last one. The last several free agent signings have just been, Hayward was the one and done, and pretty much. So I guess we knew that was going to happen. But yeah, I agree with you.
Let's not sell 2011 World Series champion Ryan Theriot too short there. That one seemed to work out for him at least, and I suppose the Cardinals walking away with a World Series champion probably also helped them out quite a bit too. So
that's my problem. I'm always going on podcasts and selling Ryan Theriot short, and I want to apologize.
That's
for doing
right.
It again. I stepped in it again. I stepped on another ring.
We do not accept Ryan Theriot slander on this podcast.
Yeah.
So, Adam, I had a question for you. You are Mr. New York, right? The Yankees consume your ever-living thoughts.
No, don't tell anybody. Yeah.
Where are you on the Juan Soto sweepstakes, and kind of what are you hoping for? Talking before the show, you're kind of hoping for a quick resolution. Obviously, one way or another, that you have that final answer so that Cashman can go about his, public getting thrown tomatoes at if that's not the case. But for you, as a Yankees fan, the Juan Soto thing, like, can the Yankees afford to let him get away?
No. I mean, as a baseball generalist and someone whose, career is sort of staked on the movement of the offseason, I think the timeline that's been floated or at least rumored, and hey, we're looking to have a resolution before the winter meetings or during or at least around the general time, that works great for someone who's trying to watch the general layout of the baseball landscape. That's perfect. And from a Yankee fan perspective, same. I mean, if he was going to move any quicker than that, I feel like, right now they have time to blunt this Boston Red Sox momentum. Kudos to the Red Sox, I would say, for not just being invested. They seem to be seriously interested in doing more than driving up Juan Soto's price. The cynical people in the field are saying, all right, so the Red Sox and Jays are involved. They're taking meetings. Obviously, they're there to put pressure on the Yankees and Mets. And yes, they are. But the Red Sox, and I believe the Blue Jays, are in it for their personal gain. And some of that personal gain is putting pressure on the Yankees and Brian Cashman. Absolutely. I mean, making your rival sweat is a good idea. But I don't think either one, you wouldn't be taking meetings if you weren't serious about getting into the ballpark or at least evening the playing field enough so that Soto has a personal decision to make. That's what Alex Cora hinted at. I think Sean McAdam wrote about it after Thursday's Red Sox meeting, that's the goal. Try to reduce the threshold for competition so that eventually it becomes more about a Juan Soto decision rather than a financial decision. That said, That's what teams who hope it doesn't become a financial decision say. And I think the Yankees are uniquely motivated not to let Juan Soto walk, especially in a room full of rivals. Somehow the Mets are the team involved that is the least Yankees rival, which is wild because you listen to Mets fans chirping from the other side of town, and you would think that this was really contentious. These two sides are always going at one another. It's been sort of one-sided. You've got Mets fans who've been doing Juan Soto jersey photo swaps since the day he was traded to the Yankees. They've been waiting for this forever. They've been gnat-like. They've been, biting Yankee fans' necks. But Yankee fans don't necessarily... they're not sitting around being afraid of the Mets. Yankee fans, if anything, want the Mets to rise to a level of competition that makes baseball in New York City exciting. So there's tremendous pressure from a roster building perspective to keep Juan Soto in the Bronx because there's no replacing him. There is no plan B that gets the Yankees anywhere close to what they were able to do last year with, I think everybody saw in the World Series, a deeply flawed roster that also included Juan Soto. If a team like the Red Sox or the Blue Jays is looking for an argument for adding Juan Soto, it's as simple as the Yankees went 82-80. Their only meaningful additions outside of Soto were Marcus Stroman and some assorted bullpen fodder and re-signing Luke Weaver. And that was enough. People said, oh, Soto's an offensive upgrade, but what does he really change? He changes everything. He takes you to the World Series. He hits the home run that sends you into the World Series. So the Yankees are taking a step back if they do not bring Juan Soto back. And I think more so than the pressure of keeping him away from the Mets, it's the pressure of maintaining your competitive edge. They will be a much worse team without Juan Soto next year. So I think from what we've heard, he had a good experience last year. And if things are somewhat equal, maybe the Yankees have this familiarity advantage. Things obviously went well last year, but somewhat equal is the key word. The Yankees cannot expect a hometown discount. They cannot expect even a small hometown discount. They have to match, and that's the pressure on Hal Steinbrenner and Brian Cashman. And last time they felt that organizational pressure, it was Hal Steinbrenner who stepped in and got the Judge deal done. Although, contrary to popular belief, they did not match the highest offer that offseason. They matched the second highest offer from the Giants. The highest offer was from the Padres, and Judge had no interest. This offseason, if the highest offer is from somebody else and the Yankees only match the second highest offer, he's going to the highest offer.
As is traditional with most Boris clients, to be expected. And don't talk Juan Soto in a Cardinals market because if you talk to the wrong person, they'll tell you that the Cardinals were simply just a Dylan Carlson away. And that has long been a very annoying, narrative that has kind of continued to exist in Cardinals fandom circles, not necessarily the ones that are rooted in sheer... fact, I guess, would be the right word to go about it. But Robert, what is there anything you're hearing, any little nuggets early on about the Juan Soto sweepstakes or anything that you can share with us?
Yeah, I'll add this about the Aaron Judge thing because Cooper says hi, by the way. But Aaron Judge, like his offer from the Padres was indeed the highest. I can't remember the exact amount that got reported, but I can confidently say that it was more than what was reported. The Padres made a very significant offer for Aaron Judge. Like they were absolutely serious about doing that. So that is some tea that I have for this podcast. But as far as Juan Soto goes, we're only just beginning with this. And I entered the offseason under the assumption that it'll probably end up being either the Yankees or the Mets that get Soto. I still think that. I think there's going to be plenty of other teams that end up getting mentioned here. We've seen the Blue Jays get mentioned. I will not discount them. We've seen the Red Sox get mentioned, and we all have seen the reports about them being encouraged following their meeting with Soto and his agent, Scott Boras. And there are surely going to be other teams that are going to be involved in this. I still think the Philadelphia Phillies are a team that makes plenty of sense because if you look at it, you see John Middleton. He is as aggressive as an owner as we've seen in baseball. And he loves star players. And if he wants a player, he'll go out and get them, and he'll authorize Dave Dombrowski, who's also aggressive, to go do it. But I'm also skeptical of some of these other suitors that have been mentioned here. And I said don't discount the Blue Jays because we saw what they ended up doing last year in pursuing Shohei Ohtani, and by all accounts, they were very serious about that. He was never on a flight to Toronto, contrary to reports. But the Blue Jays, they need a difference-making player. And Soto is absolutely a difference-making player. I'm just skeptical that they're going to have the necessary funds to go out and sign a player like that. And if you also look at Soto, two of the things that are going to be really important to him are obviously the financials, and then you look at winning. And if you look at that Blue Jays roster, it really underperformed last year. And you also have two of your star players in Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette, who are entering the final years of their deal. And does Soto, who is a very competitive guy, want to go to a place with so much uncertainty? Because you have the two star players that are going to be free agents at the end of 2025, and you also have a roster that's full of holes. To me, I'm leery of that. I'm skeptical of it. I'm skeptical of the Blue Jays' chances here. I think they're going to try. Do I think they get Soto? Probably not. And as far as the Red Sox go, I see all the reports, but can you really see John Henry, who has not spent in years past, going out and outbidding Steve Cohen and outbidding Hal Steinbrenner? That's where I have a really hard time with it. And I think it's absolutely smart for the Red Sox to be involved in this, because you can drive up the price on the Yankees. You can have further conversations with Boris about Soto and all of his clients, and it does not hurt to be involved in that. If anything, you could potentially get the player, but you'd also drive the price up on your biggest rival. That being said, if the Red Sox don't get Juan Soto, I absolutely anticipate them spending, whether it's on a starting pitcher, whether it's on a Willy Adames type, or whether it's on, I don't know who. They're going to spend this offseason. They're going to spend more than they have in previous offseasons. Red Sox fans should be more optimistic than they have been in recent offseasons, because quite frankly, it was pathetic. But this offseason should be different. But I still think at the end of the day, to circle us all back, it'll probably end up coming down to Steve Cohen versus Hal Steinbrenner. And who's going to authorize the biggest check? I don't necessarily know. I don't think anybody knows at this point, but it is shaping up to be perhaps alongside Shohei Ohtani, two of the most intriguing free agencies in baseball history.
That's why I keep arguing with Red Sox fans on this, though, predictably. Cue the chorus of people saying, duh.
Who could have seen that coming?
But they're in my mentions like, oh, what? You don't think John Henry's going to win the bidding? Like, he's a 4-time World Series champion. And I'm like, the reason I don't think he's going to outbid Steve Cohen is you people. You've been yelling at me for 5 years that he doesn't spend. The evidence is you.
It was a point well made on yesterday's stream, for sure.
It's time to get on Blue Sky. That's all I'm saying.
I'm there.
I got to get a new
I joined
following
today because of you. I'm there.
Somebody commented on yesterday's stream saying we were sponsored by Blue Sky, and I just want to reiterate to that person that Robert specifically was like, I don't know what it is, and I'm not on it. So obviously we're not sponsored by Blue Sky.
I didn't know what it was until you started talking about it, and then I saw a couple other people start talking about it now, and now I'm like, all right, well, I guess if it becomes a thing, at least I'm going to be there, but whatever. Whatever happened to MySpace? This is just my old man yelling at clouds kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I tell you who's not in my top 8. Any Red Sox fans.
So I wanted to ask you guys, I'm a criminal defense attorney by trade, and my expertise on Viva Alberto's is roster rules, transactions, history. And to the extent that I look at other teams other than the Cardinals, it's mostly to see how they stack up in the division. So for somebody like me, and I think a lot of other Cardinal fans, we may know who Chaim Bloom is, but we may not know him that well. So, and you all have had, look at all the teams in Major League Baseball and may have had some dealings with him or experiences with him, or at least talk to somebody who knows about him. What type of, challenges did he face at his other posts, and how did he handle them? And, what do you think we can expect from him, and how he might be different from Mozeliak other than just general personality?
Yeah, I'll start with this one. Is Chaim Bloom had a really difficult situation in Boston, because as soon as he was hired, his first task was to trade Mookie Betts. And that is, there's no coming back from that. Your first move, or your first big move, is going to really end up defining your legacy. And obviously they did not get enough in that trade, and it looks like an epic failure of just epic proportion. And they obviously ended up going out and signing Rafael Devers after that, trying to save face. but Bloom is still a very highly respected and highly regarded executive in league circles. And people who have worked with him really enjoy working with him. They think he's smart. They think he's intelligent. They think he's a good listener. I think the one knock that I've heard on him from opposing teams and other agents is that he is indecisive. He lacks he lacks saying done deal or just pulling the trigger on a different move. That is the one common complaint that I've heard about Chaim Bloom. But I think in terms of style, I think they're going to be in better shape going forward with him than they are Mozeliak. Mozeliak, to me, he's a good executive, but he's got some clear flaws with him, and he's hasn't had enough pitching in years past. He's relied too heavily on certain individuals, or on the field, I should say. And I think Bloom is going to end up, hopefully, from the DeWitt family, has more resources to spend to address the roster going forward. I'm hopeful that's the case because he deserves a second chance after what happened in Boston, because the work that he did in Tampa Bay should not be forgotten or should not be lost upon. There's a lot to work with here with Chaim Bloom. I think he's going to be in better position to maximize the resources that they have in St. Louis. But let's be clear, this year, maybe even next year, is going to end up being a reset for the Cardinals. They're making it very clear not to call it a rebuild. They're calling it a reset. They want to get these young guys some playing time. They want to see exactly what they have. But I expect Bloom, when he goes out and spends on some of these players, I expect them to hit more than they have under Mozeliak.
So can I have a couple of follow-ups on that? When you say it, I guess, are you trying to say that he's better at evaluating whether, because you can always scout the stat line, right? But in the minor leagues, I guess what you're trying to figure out is, can somebody improve or get better? Is he better at that than Mozeliak and his people were?
I would say he's a. I don't want to make it sound like I'm talking bad about Mozeliak, because I'm not.
Sure,
but I think Chaim Bloom is really good with evaluating players, but he's also really good analytically, and I think he's got a better feel for it than Mozeliak does. And I think he's going to end up helping the Cardinals get to a better place organizationally. I think he's going to end up being able to hire his own people in the front office, and just help really kind of get the Cardinals going on the right track. Because if you look at it now, the Brewers have less resources than the Cardinals do, and yet they are head and shoulders above where the Cardinals are at right now. And that's a pretty damning statement compared to what the Cardinals have long been, but it's the reality right now. And I think from an analytics standpoint, from a scouting standpoint, and just overall roster construction, I think that's where you're going to really see a difference with Chaim Bloom compared to a guy like John Mozeliak.
And
were the Cardinals slow on analytics in adopting it? Because it seemed like for a while the Cardinals were ahead in certain areas, especially with the pitching. Was the analytics where we fell behind the other clubs?
I would say I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase this. I want to make it, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm bashing or anything.
Sure. And I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble or do a hot take. I'm just, I think a lot of people are curious about those kind of issues, because we hear a lot of generalities over the media all the time, but not a lot of actual specifics.
Allow me to bash the Cardinals front office for 10 to 15 minutes.
No, we don't have that kind of time, Adam. Come on, keep it short here.
I do just want to note that if we're talking about player development, Christian Campbell, all of these post-Dombrowski, pre-Craig Breslow picks that Bloom made are the foundation of the current Red Sox #1 farm system in baseball. And it's Roman Anthony. It's not first round picks. It's obviously Braden Montgomery and Marcelo Meyer fall in their laps, and that's not tough to do. But the deep scouting and the player development core that Bloom was able to develop under him, the foundation of whatever the Red Sox are about to be, which feels fairly substantial. A lot of that player development is ascribed to Chaim Bloom, who, again, like Robert said, had to trade Mookie Betts immediately, and maybe as lead executive had some work to do in the department of trade return or being willing to take chances and risks. Seemed pretty risk averse and didn't quite hit his ceiling, but I think if the Red Sox fans who stuck around and waited are going to get rewarded by the work that he did, and now you got him, so now he gets a chance to lay that foundation somewhere else.
And exactly. And I also think too, it's like you look at the pitching side as well, and the Cardinals have really kind of struggled to develop their homegrown pitchers. And I think being able to identify, like, first of all, identify that talent, and also having like the people in place to help those guys maximize their abilities. I think Bloom, I'm telling you, I think Bloom is going to be precisely what Adam said. Like, he's a really good talent evaluator. We saw it in Boston with exactly how he ended up upgrading that farm system, and we're seeing them pay it off dividends now. It's going to take some time, and like the Red Sox fans got frustrated, but there was a clear vision from what Bloom was building, and he got his legs taken off from under him. And it was a lot of people in baseball thought it was really unfair, and I just think as far as the Cardinals go, he's going to end up being a huge help for them, and really just I think it's a home run hire for them, or a home run move for them, having him replace Mozeliak.
Robert, you had talked about just a few minutes ago about the Mookie Betts deal. I think it's important context to add to the reason why the return was so diluted was also the fact that Red Sox had imposed on him that he also needs to find a way to attach David Price and his money to moving that moving that contract out, and that diluted some of the return, which for me I thought was important context to add to the conversation. Adam, you had mentioned how when you look at the Red Sox and their farm system and the very top of it, and how it's been built out over the last few years, and you talk about how Chaim Bloom is mostly responsible for that, and then Robert, you came back with your point there just at the end with getting kind of axed kind of early. I think that Chaim Bloom is in the perfect situation for his, for him to also, so to speak, get his flowers, because when you look at the kind of the process that Chaim Bloom goes through, it takes time. And one thing we really know about the Cardinals organization is that they value continuity. They like having guys in place for long periods of time, and that kind of stability. And so I think one of the things that really allows for the Cardinals, or for Cardinals fans to get excited about, is the fact that Chaim Bloom's going to be able to put his magic on it, and then we're going to see it actually happen, and for it to happen over time. Because whereas what it was in Boston and the expectations to win every year and world championship, it probably wasn't fast enough. And I know that like the Cardinals and the way that they like to operate, they will give him the time and the resources to work his magic and do what he does best. And so I think I agree with you. It's a home run addition, and I think that he's got some magic in him that he will bring to the surface and make it sustainable for long periods of time. Now, going back to that Mookie Betts situation, the Cardinals seem somewhat, it's not exact one-to-one comparison, but if you look at it, and the Cardinals have an impending free agent coming up next season, and Ryan Helsley, and that's a big ticket item that could potentially be available this offseason. In my opinion, one of the big pitfalls that exists there is if they try to, i.e. repeat that same mistake and try to attach a Nolan Arenado and his money that's existing to a Ryan Helsley. I think the best case scenario for the Cardinals would be to sell Helsley separately and try to maximize on that return, and then kind of see what else you could potentially get for a Nolan Arenado rather than attaching and diluting to a high value asset.
No, I totally agree with you on that one. I think if they end up moving a guy like Helsley, you got to end up just trading him separately and not diluting the value. And if you look at his projected salary for next year, it's going to be about a nice $6.9 million, is what MLB Trade Rumors is projecting. So, and plus, if you look at it too, there's obviously options available in free agency as far as like back end options. You have Tanner Scott, you have Kenley Jensen. There's some others as well. But on the trade market, you're going to have Devin Williams, you're going to have maybe a Ryan Helsley type, and we don't know who else. Maybe a Camilo Duvall in San Francisco. He's a guy I've heard some trade rumblings with, and he's a possibility to go as well. But this would be a really good market for the Cardinals to try to end up extracting as much value for a guy like Helsley as possible. And I think it's possible for any player on the Cardinals who has a big salary, whether it's a Sonny Gray or whether it's a Nolan Arenado or whoever else, or Ryan Helsley, that they could be on the move, because the Cardinals, as I said before, they are in reset mode. It's not a rebuild. They're not tanking. They're not doing anything like that, but they're trying to reset so they can be better positioned going forward. And if you can end up getting a lot in return for a guy like Helsley, then I think you got to really be in a position to take it and do that deal and try to better yourself in the long haul. It's going to be a painful one because they really value Helsley internally, but we also saw last year after their arbitration, he did not like that process whatsoever. I think it was 2023. I want to say it was. He ended up vocalizing just how he did not like that arbitration process. You wonder if there could be any bad blood or some hurt feelings from that, because I saw up close in Milwaukee with Corbin Burns, with Josh Hader, just exactly how much going to an arbitration hearing impacted that relationship. To be clear, I have not heard anything about Helsley and the Cardinals having any bad blood there, but I think it would make sense for them to explore it and try to just get as much value in return, because I think last year just kind of underscored just how kind of far away they are from being a true contender.
Yeah, and so I also have a question from one of our other writers on the site. His name's Gabe Simmons. He wanted me to ask you specifically about Nolan Arenado, and I know it's kind of a topic of interest for most Cardinal fans. And if you're hearing anything that you can speak to, or if it's just kind of rumblings behind the scenes, the Cardinals recently at the GM meetings, you had mentioned Sonny Gray potentially being available. Here locally, we've been hearing a lot about how Willson Contreras and Sonny Gray have made it known that their preference would be to stay in St. Louis, though I guess that doesn't, you never entirely shut a door to an opportunity, so you never know what might be presented to them down in the future of this winter. But for Arenado's sake, his name wasn't mentioned specifically as someone who, and knowing his personality and being someone who's driven by winning and desire to be in a winning culture, it makes sense for him to be interested in exploring getting out of St. Louis, given that their new direction this offseason is to let the young guys play and kind of develop from within. So I guess our general question is there anything you're hearing on Arenado at this time, or is there any potential fit that you see that makes the most sense?
I think at this point, based on what I've gathered, I would not be surprised if he ended up getting moved. And if you look at it, like as you said, he values winning, but you look at Arenado, he's 33 years old right now, and he signed for 3 years and $74 million over those seasons. And if you can move a guy like that, who is not the player that he was when he was an MVP finalist a couple of years ago, I think to me, you have to seriously explore that market, because trading him would allow you to really end up investing other resources elsewhere. And I think that would be a real huge help for that entire roster overall. It would give Mozeliak, it would give Chaim Bloom and just that entire front office a ton of more flexibility. I don't have any specific fit as far as a guy like Arenado goes. I would imagine the Cardinals would have to eat a portion of that contract in order to facilitate a trade, because I cannot imagine there's going to be any team in a hurry to assume that's $74 million and also give up something in return of value. But he's still an above average player. He's still a veteran guy who I think if you get him in the right situation, he can absolutely help a contending team out and get them a little bit closer to a World Series team, or even maybe even over the hump, depending on who the team is. But to me, I think the Cardinals should be the most they should, of all the players that they have on their roster that are making a big salary, I think Arenado should be easily the one that is most they should most seriously consider trading, because to me, for a team that's resetting, having a guy like Nolan Arenado on your team, I don't really know if there's a place for him other than in the leadership role. And that to me is still not even worth $25 million, not even close.
Yeah, for sure. And fans over the last couple seasons have been very frustrated, as you have, with the pace of the off season. And what can you tell fans as far as the expectation for the pace of this off season? Are we going to see more early, or is it going to be more dragged out? Wait until, hopefully not, but into spring training type situation?
I think it'll be. I'm anticipating a slow winter. I'm also not anticipating like the big boys lasting until spring training or anything like that. Because if there's one thing that I know that Scott Boras likes, it's spotlight on his guys. And we saw it at the winter meetings. I can't remember what year specifically it was, but we saw Strasburg, we saw Garrett Cole, we saw a lot of his big boys come off the board. I remember I was around John Heyman when he ended up dropping
2019.
What's that?
That would have been after 2019, whenever Strasburg and Cole hit free agency.
Yeah, Heyman had Cole late night. I remember late night on the East Coast.
Yeah, because I'm not kidding. I was standing next to John. I was having a conversation with him, and all of a sudden he looked down at his phone, and then all of a sudden, like, I saw him tweet something, and the entire lobby just went absolutely nuts. And I looked at my phone and saw he reported Garrett Cole, and I said, "Good job." And he said, "Thank you. I got to go do TV now." And I mean, like John is the best. We love John Heyman on this podcast, or any podcast that we're on. But the speed of this offseason, it'll be. I still, as I said, I anticipate it being slow, but I anticipate Soto possibly being a strong candidate to sign at the winter meetings, because that's going to get Boras the biggest spotlight. That's going to get him, everyone in baseball gathered in one place while he's able to end up facilitating a move like that. So I wouldn't be surprised by that. But I also think we're not going to be able to see some of these big free agent hitters come off the board until Soto signs. I also think the guy like Roki Sasaki could really slow things down in the pitching market if he does indeed sign this offseason, because with him being posted now and considering his age, he's only going to be able to sign a minor league contract, and that is going to result in teams all over baseball being involved in that bidding. And I would imagine they're going to place a higher priority on signing him because of just how rare it is to sign a player of that caliber to a minor league contract and for that cheap for multiple seasons. And then they can just wait that out and then end up having their pick of Blake Snell, of Max Fried, of Corbin Burns, Nathan Eovaldi, Jack Flaherty, you name it. So I think we're going to see some guys come off the board in the coming weeks and whatever, but I don't anticipate many of those big names coming off the board before Soto does. I could see a guy like Teoscar Hernandez signing before that, though. But other than that, no real clear candidates stand out to me as of this point.
Yeah, Hernandez is the one that I'm eyeing too, because he does not want to be a Juan Soto backup plan. He's also made his preferences fairly clear, read between the lines. So let's see if anyone can get something done early on that one.
No, for sure. I think there's a very real chance that he could end up coming off the board before Soto does. I think that's something to keep an eye on for sure.
Adam, do you have a script to read for us real quick here to promote the Baseball Insiders? You wanna let's do that real quick and give you guys your roses. And real quickly before you do that, just to shout out your kind of hidden third member, Joanne. Joanne does such a great job, and you guys reference how good of a job she does on a regular basis. And I feel like she doesn't get enough flowers, and so shout out to Joanne.
She's the best. Yeah, she's actually on this podcast right now, too. You guys don't even know. She's back producing on the back end. No, but she's slick like that. Yeah, Joanne is a great producer. Shout out to the Fansided video team and audio team for taking us live twice a week. But it's going to be 3 times a week through the end of December, at least, the height of the winter meeting fever into the offseason. Hopefully, again, we get some movement there. All the people who signed deep into spring training last year kind of felt the repercussions there. Maybe Ken Kendrick gets mad at you. So maybe we get moving a little quicker this offseason. We're going to be on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the Baseball Insiders YouTube channel. That'll be 3:30 Eastern Monday and Friday. A little bit nebulous on Wednesday. We're going to move that up, I believe, to 1 o'clock Eastern. But obviously, the show floats. If there's a move, if the Soto news does drop, and especially at the winter meetings, subscribe, turn the notifications on so you'll know when we're going live. We would love to see you in the chat. Join us in the Discord, by the way. Also become a member of the Baseball Insiders. You can join at either the Rumor Mill tier or the All-Star tier. All-Star, we have private opportunities, 1 hour blocks, Q&A sessions in that channel where you can ask Robert questions. Sometimes we've got private time scheduled with me as well. If you want to hear me talk about the Boston Red Sox, like I just did for like 25 minutes on the Viva Alberto's Cardinals podcast.
Olé!
Dumbass me talking about the Red Sox, but still felt appropriate at the time. But yeah, join us at either level. You also get priority responses in the chat during the live streams if you're an all-star. But Robert and I are in the rumor mill tier as well. There just are not dedicated times where we're blocking off space. So you can chat with us between shows. And subscribe to the Moonshot, which I always say that's Fansided's email newsletter about baseball, quirks of the game, and Robert contributes to that as well. So hopefully you join, you subscribe, you like what we got, and we'd love to see you there.
Oh, absolutely, we would. As Adam just summed it up perfectly, as he always does. I don't think there's a better adorator in baseball, or just even a promoter in baseball.
That was off the dome too. I just did that all nothing in front of me.
Oh my God!
You lied to me.
Adam, they need to double it.
You said you had a
firmly
hard copy in front of you.
I have a hard copy for the Moonshot specifically to get the lingo right, and this time I just decided to wing it, and I think I got it pretty close. But the rest is fresh. I speak my mind. That's how I end up talking about the Boston Red Sox so much.
Adam, Robert, I want to be abundantly clear. I had a great time, and thank you guys so much for joining me, and I hope that we can do this again sometime in the near future and talk some more ball.
That would be awesome. I appreciate you guys having us. You're the best, and everyone who is listening, you should keep following and listening to this podcast because these boys do a great job, and we appreciate you all. And we also appreciate the shout out to Joanne as well, because she is the best of the best, and we love her to death.
Absolutely. Thanks for wrangling us, man. This was super fun, and hopefully we get to do it again soon.
Thanks very much for having me. Nice to meet you guys.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Mike,
absolutely.
Mike, as always, thanks for hopping on and talking some Cardinals baseball. We'll talk to you next week when we do our writer roundtable that we do once a month, and we'll be looking forward to hearing what you got to say on that. But for Mike, Adam, and for Robert, I'm Jake signing off. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Thank you, boys.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Viva Albertos podcast. Make sure you go over to X and follow us at Viva Albertos. Also, if you're listening to this on Spotify, make sure you hit the follow button and also hit that bell so you can be notified the moment that our episodes are released to the public. So make sure you go and do that, and have a great day. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.